Reality television is built on a foundation of managed secrets. Behind every family conflict shown on your screen, there are dozens of people holding boom poles, adjusting lighting rigs, and managing miles of cable. These crew members sign non-disclosure agreements that are historically unbreakable. The penalty for talking is usually total career destruction. Today, I am looking into the current narrative surrounding the Little People, Big World crew and how they allegedly reached an absolute breaking point with Matt Roloff. For years, the TLC production staff was legally bound to keep quiet while filming the gradual breakdown of the Roloff family. The story circulating right now is that the alleged misbehavior behind the scenes became too significant to hide, prompting the crew to finally fight back. We are looking at a scenario where whistleblowers reportedly shattered their contracts to hand Chris Marek evidence that severely damages Matt Roloff's standing. My read on this entire situation is that when you push a crew to film someone else's misery for long enough, their basic human conscience is eventually going to override their fear of a network lawsuit. To really understand how massive an NDA breach is in this industry, we need to talk about the culture of fear that exists in reality television production. Network executives prioritize ratings over reality. TLC built an entire brand around the concept of the wholesome family, and the Roloffs were the crown jewel of that brand for a very long time. Keeping that wholesome image intact meant actively suppressing anything that contradicted it. There are ongoing rumors and reports in the community about screaming matches, potential police visits to the property, and financial manipulation being swept away just to keep the show on the air. When you run a long-running family program, the network essentially becomes a crisis management public relations firm. Their primary job is to protect the asset. In this case, the asset was the perception of a functional, quirky family running a pumpkin farm in Oregon. The problem is that reality rarely cooperates with corporate brand guidelines. When a show films for over a decade, the relationship between the cast and the crew changes fundamentally. The camera operators and sound engineers are in the house every single day. They eat meals with the family. They watch the kids grow up. They see the unedited, raw emotions before the producers step in to manufacture a storyline. You cannot hide your true personality from people who are standing in your kitchen for 12 hours a day. Over time, many viewers have speculated that the crew grew increasingly uncomfortable with how Amy Roloff was being treated. The narrative suggests that there was a consistent pattern of gaslighting directed at Amy, orchestrated to make her look like the difficult, bitter ex-wife, while Matt was portrayed as the visionary patriarch, just trying to keep the farm afloat. Imagine being a camera operator watching a genuine, painful argument unfold. You know the context. You know who started it. You know the history of the grievance. Then you watch the producers step in, ask leading questions in the confessional interviews, and twist the entire interaction to fit a predetermined narrative arc. It has to be incredibly demoralizing. The crew members are human beings with their own moral compasses. The ongoing rumor is that the production team simply could not stomach the manipulation anymore. They watched Amy take the blame for the family's fracturing, while Matt and Caryn Chandler seemingly consolidated control over the farm and its resources. The internal rebellion did not happen overnight. It was likely a slow burn of frustration that eventually ignited when a line was crossed. This brings us to the alleged hot mic incident. To understand how this works, you have to know how audio is recorded on a reality set. The audio mixer's job is uniquely isolating. While field producers are looking at monitors and camera operators are busy framing their shots, the sound mixer is sitting alone with headphones on, listening to multiple channels of audio simultaneously. Every cast member wears a lavalier microphone. Those microphones transmit continuously. Even when the cameras stop rolling, the audio mixer hears everything. They hear the trips to the bathroom, the private phone calls, and the whispered conversations that happen when the subjects think they are completely alone. When you hear the same people for years, you develop an intimate understanding of their real personalities versus their on-camera personas. It takes a massive psychological toll to hear constant manipulation in your headphones and then watch the network construct an entirely sanitized narrative in the final edit. The current story alleges that an anonymous sound engineer captured a deeply incriminating conversation between Matt and Caryn. The rumor claims they were discussing what has been described online as stolen pumpkin money. Pumpkin season is the massive revenue driver for Roloff Farms. It involves countless cash transactions, heavy merchandise sales, and complicated daily overhead. If the rumors are true, this hot mic recording allegedly caught them discussing the diversion or mishandling of these farm funds in a way that disadvantaged Amy or the broader family estate. A sound mixer hearing this faces an impossible choice. Raw audio is usually logged, synced to the video files, and carefully guarded on secure hard drives. For a crew member to sneak that audio file out requires deliberate technical effort and immense personal risk. The narrative is that the sound engineer made the conscious choice to allegedly forget to delete the file, bypassing standard protocol to preserve the evidence. Why would someone risk a lucrative career in television production for this? I think the answer lies in simple fatigue. You can only watch someone you care about get financially and emotionally outmaneuvered for so long before you decide that a non-disclosure agreement is just a piece of paper protecting bad behavior. The decision to leak this audio to Chris Marek is a fascinating strategic move. If you are a rogue crew member holding volatile evidence, handing it directly to Amy might seem like the obvious choice. I disagree with that approach, and clearly the whistleblower did too. The crew likely watched Amy struggle through the divorce and understood that she carries a massive amount of emotional trauma regarding Matt and the farm. Dropping this kind of bombshell on her directly could provoke a highly emotional reaction. The network could easily spin an emotional outburst as unhinged behavior, using it to further discredit her on camera. Chris Marek represents safety and stability. He entered the picture much later, meaning he is not entangled in the decades of toxic baggage that the original family members carry. He also has a professional background in real estate. That means he understands complex contracts, property valuation, and financial documentation. If you are a crew member with audio evidence of financial manipulation regarding a massive agricultural property, Chris is the logical person to approach. He understands the paperwork. He has the emotional distance to handle the situation strategically rather than reactively. My guess is that the crew knew Chris would quietly take the evidence to a lawyer rather than screaming about it on camera. He provided a secure channel to bypass the reality television circus and move the issue into the real world. When a leak like this happens, the panic at network headquarters is absolute. TLC is essentially a massive content factory. They utilize a multi-million-dollar editing machine designed entirely to control the narrative. They rely heavily on a technique called frankenbiting. This is the process of stitching different audio clips together to create new sentences that were never actually spoken in that order. They use background music to dictate the emotional tone of a scene, telling the audience exactly how they should feel about a situation. The producers hold all the power because they control the final cut. When raw, unedited audio leaks out into the real world, it completely bypasses that entire machine. The producers instantly lose all their leverage. They can no longer hide behind creative editing or clever camera angles. The situation allegedly escalated to the point where this raw evidence was passed directly to Amy's legal team. Furthermore, there are ongoing rumors that the information may have even reached the district attorney due to the serious financial nature of the claims. This is where the story shifts from typical reality TV drama into potential legal jeopardy. A network can manage a messy divorce for ratings. They cannot easily manage an active investigation into financial fraud without risking their own corporate liability. The legal teams at TLC likely scramble to figure out who leaked the audio. Enforcing an NDA is a brutal process. The network can sue a crew member for damages, effectively bankrupting them and ensuring they never work in the entertainment industry again. However, non-disclosure agreements have legal limits. In many jurisdictions, an NDA cannot be used to cover up a crime. If the audio recording contained evidence of actual financial theft or fraud, the whistleblower might have legal protections. I am not a lawyer, and I cannot say for certain how Oregon state law applies to this particular reality television contract. My perspective is that the network probably realized that suing the whistleblower would force the entire hot mic recording into the public record during a trial. The last thing TLC wants is a public courtroom battle over unedited audio that destroys their carefully curated family brand. We need to take a step back and look at the broader context of reality television to see why this incident feels so monumental. For the first 20 years of the genre, the power dynamic was entirely one-sided. The network held the footage, the network held the contracts, and the cast members were essentially hostages to the edit. If a cast member complained that they were given a bad edit, the network would just shrug and point to the contract they signed. The crew was always viewed as an extension of the network's power. They were the silent enforcers who captured the footage and handed it over to the executives. The idea that the crew would break ranks and side with a cast member against the network is a massive paradigm shift. It shows that the traditional walls of reality television production is crumbling. Crew members are recognizing their own agency. They are realizing that their technical skills give them incredible access to the truth, and they are starting to feel a moral obligation regarding how that truth is used. This is not just a problem for little people, big world. This is a terrifying concept for any production company relying on manufactured family drama to sell advertising space. I think it is incredibly important to engage with the counter-arguments here. Whenever a massive rumor like this circulates, we have to look at the other side of the coin. What is the most charitable interpretation of this entire situation for Matt Roloff? Farm finances are notoriously complicated. Operating a large agricultural property requires moving significant amounts of money around constantly. Revenue from a seasonal business like a pumpkin patch involves massive overhead costs, insurance premiums, equipment maintenance, and payroll. Perhaps what sounded on a hot mic like a conversation about stealing money was actually a mundane discussion about reallocating funds to cover legitimate farm debts. A sound mixer is an expert in audio frequencies, not forensic accounting. It is entirely possible that a crew member misinterpreted a crass or poorly worded conversation about business strategy as a literal crime. The phrase, "taking the money," might just be shorthand for moving assets between LLCs to maximize tax benefits. I do not have the raw audio in front of me, so I cannot say definitively what was discussed. We have to acknowledge the possibility that this entire narrative is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of corporate farm management. Another aspect to consider is the network's own complicity in generating rumors. Reality television networks are notorious for leaking their own dramatic storylines to the press to drum up ratings for an upcoming season. There is always a lingering possibility that this entire leak is a controlled explosion orchestrated by TLC. If the show's ratings were dipping, what better way to revitalize interest than to leak a story about an internal rebellion and a secret audio recording? It creates a massive wave of online speculation, drives viewers back to the older seasons to look for clues, and guarantees a massive audience for whatever content they release next. I could be wrong, but it looks like standard playbook behavior for a network desperate to keep a legacy show relevant in a crowded media landscape. However, the sheer volume of rumors and the specific detail about the crew turning against Matt makes me lean toward the idea that something genuine happened behind the scenes. The narrative aligns too perfectly with the visible tension we have seen on the show over the last few years. You can see the exhaustion in the eyes of everyone involved. The interactions feel strained. The forced family gatherings at the farm lack the warmth they used to have. Even the best editing team in the world cannot completely hide the genuine resentment that builds up during a bitter property dispute. The role of Caryn Chandler in all of this is also a major point of discussion among viewers. Since she transitioned from farm manager to Matt's partner, the power dynamics on the farm shifted dramatically. Many fans have pointed out that Caryn seemed to take an increasingly active role in the financial and operational decisions of the property. This naturally created friction with Amy, who still held a stake in the farm at the time. If the hot mic recording does exist, and it features Matt and Caryn discussing finances in a way that excludes or disadvantages Amy, it would validate years of viewer suspicion. It would prove that the audience's intuition about the changing power structure was accurate all along. The fact that the crew allegedly stepped in to validate Amy's side of the story is the most compelling part of this rumor. Imagine the emotional relief Amy must have felt if Chris brought her this evidence. For years, she was likely told by producers that she was being unreasonable. She was probably encouraged to make peace for the sake of the show. To have the very people holding the camera secretly hand you proof that you are not crazy, that the manipulation is real, and that they see it too. That level of validation is profound. It changes the entire narrative from a bitter ex-wife holding on to a grudge to a woman who was systematically outmaneuvered by her ex-husband and the network until the crew decided to level the playing field. If these reports are true, the whistleblowers took an incredible risk. The television industry is a small world. Word travels fast. Getting caught breaking an NDA usually means you are blacklisted from every major production company in Los Angeles and New York. The fact that someone was willing to put their livelihood on the line speaks volumes about the severity of what they allegedly witnessed. They did not just leak a minor spoiler about a season finale. They allegedly leaked financial information that could have severe legal consequences. This situation also highlights the fading power of the NDA in modern entertainment. We are seeing a broader cultural shift where people are less willing to stay silent about workplace misconduct, regardless of the contracts they signed. The fear of a corporate lawsuit is starting to be outweighed by the desire for public accountability. TLC can threaten all the legal action they want, but once the raw audio is out in the ether, the damage to the brand is permanent. The viewers cannot unhear the truth. Looking at the history of Little People, Big World, it is sad to see how far the narrative has shifted from its original premise. In the beginning, the show was genuinely educational. It offered a window into the daily challenges and triumphs of living with dwarfism. It was about overcoming obstacles and building a unique life. Over time, the educational aspect faded, replaced by standard reality television tropes. The focus shifted to marital strife, property disputes, and manufactured conflicts. The farm went from being a symbol of family unity to a battleground for control. The alleged crew rebellion feels like the natural conclusion to this trajectory. When a network strips away the authenticity of a show and replaces it with pure drama, the environment naturally becomes toxic. You cannot manufacture conflict for 15 years without collateral damage. The collateral damage in this case was the mental health of the cast and the moral threshold of the crew. Matt Roloff spent years building Roloff Farms into an empire. But according to this ongoing narrative, his methods alienated the very people tasked with documenting his legacy. The fallout from this alleged breach is likely going to shape the future of Roloff. Reality television contracts. Networks are probably scrambling to rewrite their non-disclosure agreements, adding even harsher penalties for unauthorized data transfers. They might implement stricter security protocols on set, limiting who has access to the raw audio files. But technology makes it incredibly difficult to plug every leak. A sound mixer can simply hit record on their personal cell phone while monitoring the audio feed. A camera operator can quietly forward an email. The iron grip the networks used to have is slipping. I honestly wonder how Matt and Caryn are navigating this current wave of public scrutiny. If the audio recording is real, their ability to control their public image is severely compromised. Every statement they make will be analyzed against the rumors of the hot mic. Every business decision regarding the farm will be viewed with suspicion by the fan base. They are no longer just dealing with a messy family dynamic. They are dealing with an audience that actively suspects them of financial manipulation. Ultimately, reality television is an illusion. We only see the fraction of reality that the network decides is profitable. But the people holding the equipment is living in the actual reality. They see the tears when the cameras are turned off. They hear the arguments in the driveway. The fact that the TLC crew allegedly decided to tear up their contracts to expose the truth is a phenomenal moment in pop culture history. It pulls back the curtain on the entire industry. It reminds us that behind every polished, edited episode, there are real human beings making choices about what is right and what is wrong. This story is far from over. Whether this ends in a quiet settlement, a massive public legal battle, or simply fades into the background noise of internet rumors, remain to be seen. I think the damage to the Wholesome brand is already done. The audience's trust has been broken, and the fourth wall has been completely shattered by the very people paid to maintain it. I will continue to watch how this unfolds, keeping an eye on the legal filings and the shifts in the farm's ownership structure. The truth usually finds a way to surface, even if it has to bypass a multi-million-dollar editing machine to get there.